Are you ready to start implementing some tactics to improve your search engine optimization? This video is going to help you do exactly that. Hopefully you've seen our first video, which is a little bit of a foundational background on SEO to make sure that you understand some of the principles that will help you with the implementation that we're going to talk to you about right now. Before we dig in, it's important to understand that SEO is very, very complicated. Google takes into consideration over 200 factors in its algorithm to determine which websites it's going to rank where based on which criteria. And it's a very, very secret recipe. Google does not, release it. It's not public knowledge. So we have to take a lot of insights and learnings from different examples, different researches, and we've been able to identify 3 key criteria that really seem to be some of the most important ones that we're going to focus on for you today. The first is technical considerations. The second is on-page considerations, which means inside your website, and the third is off-page considerations, which is outside of your website. Let's jump right in. So when we talk about Google technical considerations, there's 4 main things that we're going to speak about. The first is your website speed and your page speed. Very important that your website and pages load quickly on your site. It helps improve the user experience. We've all been there, right? You go to a web page and it's like loading, loading, loading. We have very short patience and attention spans these days. So if it takes too long, we actually just abandon and we go and find a different website that has a better experience. So your speed is very important. Second consideration is that it has to be mobile optimized. Google is able to take this into consideration to see how positive of a mobile experience are you providing, because way more than 50% of all searches now are done on mobile devices, and that's only continuing to grow more and more every single year. The third technical consideration is the security of your domain name. You need to have a secured domain, which means that before your www.mybusiness.com, there's typically an HTTPS before that, and the S is the key letter that actually says that it's got a security certificate associated to that domain name, and Google will actually go and track that and give priority to websites that have that security certificate. So it's something you want to make sure with your domain provider that you have that security certificate turned on. The last of the technical considerations is your domain age, right? Again, Google is going to give priority to domains that have been around for a while because it makes it seem like there's some credibility, some authenticity to a website that's had some history, right? If you just buy a brand new www.mybusiness.com, address last week, it's much less likely that Google is going to instantly start referring it. You need to kind of build up some trust, some credibility with users, and Google will take that into consideration as one of its technical considerations. Okay? Typically, domain names that have been around for at least 2 to 3 years have a much higher likelihood of getting ranked on the top page of Google. Okay, now that we understand some of the technical considerations, let's look at the second big criteria, which is the on-page optimization. These are all the things that you can be doing inside of your website to help optimize. Now, if you watched our first video, we talked a lot about keywords as a foundational piece. If you haven't watched it, we suggest you go take a quick look. It's a short video to really understand and how to make sure that you get the right keywords. What we want to be now doing is integrating those keywords inside of our website, and there's many different places that we can do that. First of all, just in the general text that you have on the various pages of your website, right? You obviously have a description about your company, about your services, maybe about your staff and employees. Anywhere you can, make sure that you're incorporating those keywords. It has to flow into a natural sentence, so it has to kind of be organic and natural, but you can just be clever about how you structure your sentences to include those particular keywords. And again, always make sure that you're including that city, town, neighborhood, whatever it might be, because that's what people are searching for in the Google bar. If you don't include your city, town, neighborhood everywhere in your website, then you have much less likelihood that Google is going to connect you with those searches. All right. It might seem obvious to you that you are in Boston or in Chelsea. However, if your website doesn't have that information, in it, then Google is not going to make that connection as naturally as a different website that is mentioning it much more frequently in their website. So general text is a great place. A second area that's huge and often underlooked, especially in the salon industry, is blogs. Why are blogs important? Blogs give you a lot of space to write a lot of text where you can incorporate so many different keywords very naturally in the flow of your conversation. So that's one thing. But secondly, when you have interesting blogs with good content, people will come and read the blogs. That means they're going to spend more time on your website. And the more time that somebody is on your website is a trigger or a clue to Google that this is a good website with good content. It gives you credibility and trust. Some of those elements that we said is going to make Google more likely to recommend you as one of the listings. So blogs can be very, very strategic for you when it comes to SEO. A couple of other areas that are less common because they're a little bit more techy is in your title tag and your meta descriptions. Now, these are more sort of program elements. You wouldn't see these from inside your actual website, but when you actually do a Google search, typically you're going to see the title tag listed as well as a short snippet description, and that's called your title tag and your meta description that you can control in the programming phase of your website. So a little bit more technical, but again, you definitely want to make sure that your keywords are indicated in those two areas to help you optimize the chance of your site being listed. Another sneaky area, this is a little hot tip for you, where you can incorporate keywords is in your image descriptions. If you click on an image inside of your website, again, this is when you're in the sort of the coding or sort of programming part of your website, you can add what's called an alt tag, right, which is your image tag. And if you don't do anything, typically that just says IMG with some random number if you've taken the picture from your camera. But you can change that description to tell Google what is in that picture. And again, highly encourage you to utilize various keywords as those descriptions of the photos. It's not something that the actual consumer is going to see when they're on your website. However, it will plug those keywords to Google so that when it's scanning your site, it sees them and registers them more frequently. The third main category that Google looks at when determining search engine rankings is something called off-page considerations. These are all the things that happen outside of your website that are still very, very important as they give clues to Google about your trust factor, your credibility, your authority, across everywhere on the internet. So let's look at a couple of examples. A first key one is something called backlinks. Now, backlinks would be any other website out there that actually has a link to your website, right? Imagine this, if another website out there is putting a link and sending its viewers to your website, that's a very, very good indicator to Google that your website is a valuable source of information, valuable place to be. If there's many, many, many websites out there that are talking about you and having links to your website, that has a very big impact, positive impact, obviously, on your Google search ranking scores. So try to think about other businesses, other places that could be linking your salon company or your business. One example might be local online magazines, right? They might want to talk about if it's beauty for salons, and they might want to feature your salon and put a link to your website. This would be a great example. Bloggers. It might be other local businesses in your community. Perhaps you can do an exchange with them, right? Whether it's a restaurant, clothing boutique, and they have a link to your website. on their website, and you on your, let's say, salon website, you can have a link to their website. It's helping out both. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Very good technique to do that. But obviously, the more that you can get larger websites that have lots of traffic, and having your website there can be much more valuable. So we recommend make a list of all the different websites that you think could work for something like this. Magazines, online newspapers, fashion bloggers, your manufacturers, right? If you work with a brand like Redken or Goldwell or Wella, typically those sites have on their website a salon locator where they have a listing of all the different salons that are using their products. And if you're listed there properly, you could have your website tagged there so that consumers who are on those websites can click and go to your website. Those are all great examples of backlinks.